Hey everybody, Rich here, Rich's Custom Marine and Auto. And this one we're going to be working on this Polaris Ranger. Customer concern on this one is that they were driving it up their driveway and they heard what sounded like an electrical spark, and now it has no power and won't do anything. So this is a 2017 Ranger XP. So we're going to get going here and start doing some troubleshooting. We'll take a look at the battery first and we'll start there. So let me get this set up on the tripod and we'll get going. Okay, to access the battery, we'll remove the passenger seat. And then it's underneath this luggage bay here, as they call it. And then there's our battery. So that's probably not the best solution right there as it is. So but let's check the voltage and see what we've got. Around 12 volts, which is it's been sitting, they say, up to 2 years, so that's actually not too bad. Obviously, first thing we're going to start with is taking those terminals off and getting them cleaned up and coming up with a better solution for making contact there. Alright, so made a better connection on our battery terminals. Just tried it off camera and it still acts completely dead, even though we've got the charger on it and 12.9 volts. So next thing we're going to do is I'm going to see if the battery cable going to this solenoid is good. It says it is. Of course, we got nothing on the other side of the solenoid. So we're going to check fuses next. Okay guys, let me bring you up to speed. Alright, I did some troubleshooting here. Down inside this compartment, down where that bundle of wires is, let me see if I can get a better view. The ground screw is down there. Like I say, it's down underneath there. I checked and made sure, because I was getting power everywhere. I traced the power through, and then right next to the fuse block is this circuit breaker. So you can see I peeled the coating back on that, traced that down underneath there. The reason I did all of that, I probably didn't mention this before, but this fuse had blown. Now, according to the cover, that's the ECM fuse, which makes sense why we wouldn't have any dash or anything like that. But I went back, these connections were very corroded, and I know it doesn't look good, but inside they're very clean. They've got dielectric grease on them and all that. I just wanted to see what blew that. I have a feeling the loose and probably arcing battery cable here was the main issue. But now that turns on. And got to stand on the brake. But we got her back running. So, the only two things I can figure that blew that fuse, because I'm not finding anything else, I'm not finding any damage in the wires. I laid underneath and checked the main starter cable. I didn't see, that wouldn't blow this fuse anyways, but just wanted to check it, because this is a 9-year-old vehicle. Just make sure it wasn't rubbed or anything like that. But all of this stuff looks really good. All of the harness looks really good. So I was just trying to figure out what in the world was causing that. And like I say, I suspect the corrosion that was in these terminals here, and then that battery cable end over there, having a nail in it was probably the bigger cause of our issue. They maybe hit a bump or something, and it made and break and made contact quickly, and maybe that popped the ECU fuse. So I just need to put this back together. This bottom piece comes off of there pretty easily. There's those tabs right in there, and you just take a little screwdriver and pull that outward, and do that with all four of them, and then you can get this bottom piece to come off. So that'll be easy. I'll clean that up before I put it back on, but then that'll snap back on. And then it's got these couple of fittings there. This is the mounting bracket that bolts it down to the plastic down inside of there. So this goes on there like so, and then slides over and locks. And then those are the 4 screws that hold it in place down there. So I need to look into getting a new cable end for the positive here. The negative, I think I can clean that up, and it seems to still have enough tension. I just need to pull that bolt out, clean it up some too, so it'll squeeze a little better, and then I can put those covers back on. Now the other things we're doing to this vehicle is the owner wanted me to go ahead and do all the servicing, so we're going to change the oil. We'll put a new air filter in it, take a look at the spark plugs and see it may need new spark plugs. And then I'm not familiar with these, so I don't know if the transmission and differential is all one. Kind of looks like it is, and we'll be changing the fluid on that as well. And then we'll probably go ahead, and it's on the other side, we'll take a look at the belt. Which is underneath that cover, and we'll see what kind of shape it's in. Being as how this is a 9-year-old vehicle, and it's sat for depending on which owner you ask, 1 to 2 years. They weren't really sure how the performance of the belt was, so we'll just take a look at it. If we pull this cover off and there's a bunch of rubber dust in there and stuff like that, or the belt looks glazed, we'll probably go ahead and do it. This is a farm working machine. They use this on a farm to just haul things, do things, and just do what they need to do on the farm. So they just want it back up usable. They've been trying to cover everything on the farm using just four-wheelers, quads, and of course quads don't have a nice bed like that. So we'll bring you guys along as we do the servicing and all that stuff, and of course we'll check the lug nuts and air up the tires and do all of that stuff as well, and get this thing ready to go. So we got our new positive battery cable, got it installed over there to the solenoid. Here is, see if I can get it to show, here's the part number, the Polaris part number of that battery cable. Also went through, cleaned the negative. So these extra cables are for the front mounted winch. I went through and cleaned the corrosion, wire wheeled that brush, and then wire wheeled the bolt, and then dielectric greased everything, added a washer. I did the same on the positive because it didn't seem like the terminals that they used for the winch wire were too big, so I put a flat washer on there just to make sure it made good contact, because those things draw quite a bit of amps, and that would be a pretty good arc. So I did test the battery this morning after having it on a 2 amp charge overnight, and I'll show you there's the result. So it looks like we'll be picking up a battery as well. Even though it seems to turn this thing over okay, I'm sure it probably wouldn't be sufficient for using the winch and other stuff like that. I also took the other cable off, positive, that goes to the starter, and cleaned all the corrosion. There was a pretty good amount of corrosion on there, and then you can probably see the remnants of the dielectric grease I put on there. So that's got the positive and negative cables all taken care of. Obviously, as I showed before, that's got our electrical problem taken care of. So now we're going to switch gears. Went yesterday and got a box full of parts. So we're going to be doing the belt, we're going to be doing all the fluids, and also spark plugs. Alright, so I wasn't filming when I took the belt off, but I'll walk you guys through that. You'll want to take the lower portion of the air filter box off. It actually goes up in there underneath like so. This side connecting into there. And then you get that out, you can take your air filter out. Have a look at your air filter, see if you need to replace it. This one we did need to replace. And then it's upside down right now, but here's the lid. You'll need to go ahead and remove that too. So this thing basically goes through the frame rail like that and underneath, and you've got the bolt that goes there, goes in the frame there, and then you've got a mount point there and a mount point there, and then there's this small hose goes on the end there, and then the big one, of course, is the one that goes up to the throttle body. So that'll get that stuff out of your way. The other thing you'll need to do is you need to pull the grease fitting out of here. So take you a 10mm wrench and unscrew that thing, and that'll come out of the way, because the cover won't come off with that greaser in the way. I actually tried even jacking the vehicle up, because that would pivot that out a little bit more, but the suspension didn't move enough to actually do anything beneficial. And then you can kind of start working that cover out of there. Now, because this sticks out so far, it is a little bit of a pain. I took a large flat blade screwdriver and stuck it in behind here just carefully, and as I pulled out, I kind of lifted up on it, and that thing popped and came right out of there. Now the rubber seal did come out, and I just pushed it back in the groove. And then as far as doing the belt, well, let me back up. The screws, and they actually are, well, that's the bolt style that holds the airbox in place. That's a 10mm head. And then here's the screws that go up into like these ears that hold the cover in place. And of course, that's the cover itself. So now, in order to get the belt off of there, there are special tools you can use, and you can remove this bolt, pull this off, and you'll be able to get your belt off of there. You can also take your belt. I'm going to figure out how to hold the camera and show you guys this. Okay, so your belt's up in there. You can take and squeeze it together, and it's a pretty good amount of force. It took me both hands squeezing really hard, and what that'll do is it forces these two apart and it'll get real loose. Well, with that, then you can just kind of pull it off the bottom some, and then this will spin as long as you're not in gear. We're in gear right now. Now it's in park. But just pull that belt off the bottom and then work it around, and it'll come right off of there. And then of course once the tension's off of there, you can just work it off of this pulley right here. So as far as reinstalling it, it's somewhat similar. We'll put the new belt on, and I'll show you the part number of that here in just a moment. But we'll put the new belt on here, bring it up, start turning this until we get into a load, and then push down, and it should start pushing this sheave out some, and then we should be able to roll it the rest of the way on. Now the method that I'm showing you here is not what is in the Polaris procedure for their maintenance, but what it is a good way to be able to do this job when you're out on the trail. And you're not home with your big toolbox. So obviously to do this job you'd need a 8mm to get all of these screws out. You need a 10mm to get the air box off, and then a flathead for getting the hose clamps off, and to help feed that cover over that suspension mount right there. So let me see if I can get the camera set up here and try and film putting the new one back on. All right. Three, two, 1, 1149. Of course, as you can see, it's a genuine Polaris belt. So now these belts, from what I've read, you can put them on either way when they're brand new. Most recommend putting it so that you can read the name on it. So that's what we'll do here. Some will actually have arrows. This one does not. It's just got some numbers marked on it. But very important, if you take a used belt off, you want to make sure you put it back on the same way, because it will mess it up if you put it on opposite direction you took it off. Alright, so we'll get it started over there. And we'll start trying to roll this thing around. Okay, we're almost there. It's just a matter of pushing down on the bottom of that belt and rotating, and it spreads those sheaves apart like we did when we removed it, and we'll get it popped on there. There it went. Alright, so now you want to rotate the belt in this direction a few times, because that'll reset this pulley back all the way out. And if you don't do that, what'll happen is when you put everything back together and you go to take off, it'll be like you're in a higher gear. It'll just really bog and go. So yeah, a couple times spinning it, and then let me show you. Then what it does is it brings that belt back out. You can see the belt's back out all the way, and good to go. So now, of course, we just got to put our cover back on and put all those bolts back in and all that. Put the Zert fitting back in, and that'll be it for that. So I'll do that off camera, and we'll get to changing fluids. All right, to locate the engine oil drain plug, go in just in front of the rear wheel, and you can see my Allen wrench there. There's a hole in the skid plate, and then you just need a 6mm Allen wrench. Make sure you get the crush seal off of there, and we'll match that up with a new one out of my kit. Okay, here's our new air filter, 7081706. Always blow out your air box when you have it removed. Also, there's a little hose, a little nipple there, and you can just pinch it if you don't have this removed, and that lets dust and other stuff out. So what we're going to do is we're going to hook this side up first and the hose. Okay, and what you got to do is you got to take these little pins, and they kind of pop up into that cover. Now, I'm probably not going to be able to show you that too well. Hey guys, full disclosure, I did take the lid back off because they have to be tilted like this for that lid to go in and come down, and I just could not get enough angle. It was hitting the belt cover and everything else, so I just took the 3 bolts and the hoses loose and got that thing set up. So now we can go ahead and set the air filter element in there. Pull that thing up in place. And we got to make sure we get all of the clips. There's a total of 5 of them. So 2 on the inside, 2 on the outside, and 1 on the back. Also make sure you get the hose clamp tight on the hose coming in. So now that's got the air cleaner stuff all back together. So at this point, we've probably got enough of the oil drained out. It's been probably 30-40 minutes. I'm going to lay underneath there, put the drain plug back up. I need to look up the torque value for that so that we can torque it properly. And I'll let you guys know also what size of crush washer that is. Alright, so that's the closest one I have. It's 12 millimeters on the inside, 18 millimeters on the outside. And I've already test fit it. But if it's on there, good. Alright, so looks like we got sealant coming out of there, which is a little concerning because that makes me wonder if this is the first time the oil's been changed. And we'll go ahead and put the drain plug back in, and this gets torqued to 12 foot-pounds. And now we'll go ahead and get the oil filter. We got to get that from the top. Oil filter. Is located right down there, so if you look from the top, I've got this covered because I don't have spark plugs in it, but you can see right in front of the engine right there. So I'll get my filter wrench and reach in there and get that thing unscrewed and double check that my drain pan's also in the correct spot. Okay, oil filters. From this view, oil filters down in there. I'm going to go ahead and take this clamp off and get this out of the way to give us a little room to get in there. Alright, now you can see the space we made to get in there. So we'll actually be able to reach that darn filter. Okay, and because that oil filter is so small, I can't use my standard, the strap style oil filter wrench, so I'm going to use this guy. Okay, and there's the number. We'll be using the wicks replacement, which I will show you guys here in just a second. So this is what we're going to use. This specs 5W50. So Lucas is good stuff. As I always do, I'm going to put a little bit of oil in the filter. You do you, and you're welcome to your opinion, but I always add a little bit of oil. Now we'll let it soak into the filter media a little bit because this is tipped on its side when it goes in there. Put just a little bit of oil on the O-ring seal. I've already taken a rag and wiped the seal surface on the engine. You always want to do that because you want to make sure that this O-ring on the old filter didn't stick, because it'll leak, and it'll leak in a big way. And then I just get it as tight as I can with my hand. And then we're good to go. It's a Wix 51356 and fits in there perfectly. So at this point I can go ahead and put this tube on, put the other tube back on there, and we can start dumping oil in it. Alright, moving on now to the main gear case, they call it. You want to pull the fill plug out. So this guy right here, take a look at the O-ring, make sure it's in good shape. Ours is in really good shape. The drain plug, so those are a 5/16 Allen. This thing's got actually quite a bit of metal on it. It's been a while since it's been changed, so I'm going to wipe that off, and then I'll show you guys where that's located. Alright, so I got that thing pretty cleaned off. O-ring looks to be in good shape. So you go underneath the vehicle here, and you might be able to see there where the oil's been dripping a little bit, and it's up inside of there. I'm going to go finger tight for the moment, and then I will look up the torque spec and we'll get that thing torqued, and then we can go ahead and dump the oil in there. The oil level is to the bottom of that fill plug, so once we see that it's level there, then we'll be all set, and then we can move on to the front. Drain plug underneath gets torqued to 12 foot-pounds, and that's what we'll torque the fill plug to as well. This is my setup that I came up with. Piece of clear line. I cut a little bit of a bevel on it, and it was just the right size to shove the funnel into. So I'm going to need both hands to do this, but I'll just hold that up and dump my fluid in there and go. And of course, periodically pull this out of there and see if the level is where we want it to be. I had overfilled it just a little bit, but I just pulled my drain pan underneath it, let it drain down to where it's level, and now we can go ahead and put that plug back in and torque it to 12 foot-pounds. I don't know if anybody in the aftermarket makes the correct fluid for these differentials. I really didn't research that, if I'm perfectly honest with you. I know the book says to use this Polaris AGL, gear case lubricant and transmission fluid, so I went to Polaris and that's what I got. You'll want 2 quarts of this stuff because it uses, there's probably a quarter out of that, so about 1 1/4, so you'll have a little bit left over for checking it and topping it off later on in the future, in between when your change interval. So I mean, I'd have to guess, being as how this is a 2017, that AMSOIL probably makes some or whatever, but I just, for the purpose of the customer, I just went ahead and went with the Polaris oils because that's probably about the best way to go. Also, one of the service items is to pull the spark arrestor. So you got to get this 8mm or 5/16 headed bolt out of there. I've been soaking this one with PB Blaster because it really acts like it wants to break. But we'll cover that once I get that thing out of there. Okay, to do the front differential fluid, go up underneath, and then the drain plug is right there. Again, it's 8mm or 5/16 to get that out. I've already drained it. You can see the liquid around it that I'll spray off here when I'm done. Torque that to 10 foot-pounds. And I'll show you where the fill plug is located. So come in from the right front area. And you should be able to see I've got the plug out right there. This is just like the rear, that you fill it until it's level with the bottom of that hole. So you can see I've got a funnel set up here with a couple lines hooked to it, and that's how I plan to do it. Okay, so this is the fluid that we'll use for the front, demand drive fluid. And I did not look up exactly how much it uses, but I can tell you there wasn't that much that came out. This is what the spark arrestor looks like. It actually goes up inside of there like so. You'll definitely want to take that bolt and soak it with PB Blaster or something, some type of penetrating oil, because I actually thought that one was going to break, and after letting it soak while we did the front and rear differentials and stuff, the oil changes in those, it actually just came right loose. So you want to take this thing, take a wire brush and wire brush it real well, and I did the inside some too, and then blow it out with compressed air. When this one came out, this piece of packing from the muffler was actually wrapped around it, so that was obviously restricting the exhaust to some degree. But yeah, and then this thing just slides right back inside, and then we put that bolt in, and there's a slot in there. There it is. There's the slot that the nut goes in, and it holds it so you don't actually have to use a wrench. So, and then just snug that bolt down. Okay, I kind of got into this and then realized I should show you guys. Working on inspecting the brakes. This is the inboard pad. Let's see. You can kind of see the thickness on there. So by the book, the minimum limit for the pads is 1 millimeter. These have about 4 millimeters left, or 3.5, and supposedly they're only 4 millimeters when they're brand new. So I'll show you guys how I took the pads off in just a moment. I've pulled this out. These are the slide pins, and I've greased those. So we'll go ahead and slide this back into the caliper like so. Probably going to have to grab a pick in order to get the boots to pop back over the top of the little ridge that it sits on. Okay, we'll get this boot pulled up over the top. There's a little ridge, it's hard to show on camera. When you guys do this, you'll see what I mean. It'll make sense to you. Okay, so now in order to put this pad in, you got to push this bracket, squeeze here, take your pad, and you'll go start fitting it through there. And as you squeeze this back, it'll give you room to get that pad in. Now you can start one side like that, but you can't get the other side that way. So you've got to kind of squeeze and work it, and then you'll get it to pop over like so. Now, of course, our outer pad, we want to turn it so that the wear material is inside. We'll do the same thing. Get this thing squeezed back. There we go. Now, to get to this point, we took these bolts out. Okay, these guys here, they go in through these ears. They're 15 millimeter headed bolts. I got to go get some blue Loctite because they had blue Loctite on them. But those go in there and they get torqued down to 30 foot-pounds. Before we get to that, in order to be able to push this bracket back like we did, you need to compress these pistons. Now what I used is I call it a squeeze clamp like that for one, and a regular C-clamp on the other. And what I mean by one and the other, put them there together and then very slowly squeeze it back. You want to make sure you look inside the driver's side front wheel well and make sure you're not going to push fluid back enough that it overflows, because it'll make a mess. Okay, so what we'll do now, we'll go ahead and put a little bit of blue Loctite on there. Get this thing back started. You never want to let your caliper hang by the hose, so use a bungee cord or a piece of wire, or you can even use a coat hanger, welding wire, whatever you've got, so that it doesn't hang by that. And then you can just like hook it on the spring and then hook it to somewhere on the caliper other than the line. Okay, so we'll go ahead and set our torque wrench up for 30 foot-pounds. Okay, now it's got that. Now, of course, we want to make sure we pump the brake pedal some to get that piston, those pistons pushed back out. And then I've taken a wire brush and gone around these. I may actually do it again because there's a fair amount of corrosion on there, and I just want to get that cleaned up a little better than what it is. And the next thing I'll do before I actually put the wheel on, once I clean that up a little more, is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the greasing of the front suspension components on this side, because it'll probably be easier to do it and easier for you guys to see it with that wheel off. Okay, so we'll start with the lower control arm. We've got this grease fitting right here. I have already wiped those off. You want to wipe them off and try and make sure you don't get any, you don't want to push any dirt inside. Okay, now we've got the front side here. We'll take care of that one. And then we'll go ahead, and it might not show on the camera because of the angle, but there's one for the upper right up here. And what I do is I grease those until I see grease come out, or sometimes you can hear it kind of squirt. So that's got those, and then I was looking at the lower ball joint, the upper ball joint, and the tie rod, and there doesn't appear to be any grease fittings on that. So the only other thing I could think of is maybe the drive shaft. Also, while you're in here, guys, you want to make sure you take a look at the CV boots, the outer and the inner. Rotate the axle a little bit, make sure they're in good shape. If they're torn or anything like that, you need to go ahead and take care of those. Also, while you're looking up in here, the radiator's up in here, and this is one of your radiator hoses, and you can see the other radiator hose. Take a look at those, see if they look like they've been leaking or whatever else. You want to take a look at your shock. If there's a bunch of oil running down this, then you can tell that your shock's blown out. And generally, you can feel that as well, because it'll just continue bouncing after going over a bump instead of stopping right away. So just take a good once over on everything while you're doing this stuff, and then you'll be good to put your wheel back on. So I'm going to climb underneath there and see where the grease points are for that forward drive shaft. Okay, so these have what they call an adjuster. It's just a set screw here. We'll put our blue Loctite on there. And you want to run that thing in until it lightly seats. Okay, that's seated, and then back it out a half a turn. And that's why that Loctite is important. So you'll see when you take that out too, that it's got the factory blue Loctite on it. But you need to get that out of there before you go removing the caliper. And that's part of the removal. And like I said, I apologize for not having the camera going while I was doing that. So, okay, we're gonna move over and I'll do the same thing to the other side. And the next thing you guys will see on camera will be when we do the back. Okay, let's check out these back brakes. These are also a 15 millimeter. That one might have to be a wrench. Let's see. Yep, that one's gonna have to be a wrench, it looks like. Okay guys, the camera battery died when I was doing the back brake inspection. It's pretty much exactly the same as the front. Same torque, 30 foot-pounds. So, and then lug nuts get torqued to 60. We did go ahead and have new front tires put on it because they were pretty dry rotted and they weren't holding air too well, and they put in new valve stems for us. Also went in and did the greasing on the chassis, greased the drive shaft, and then the last thing that customer asked me to do was this wire right here. So that basically flashes the seatbelt light on the dash if you don't have your seatbelt buckled. And at some point those wires had been caught by something and damaged, so they had done a temporary repair which worked fine, but brought wires out here, ran them down here, and then it goes down inside of there. Well, I extended the wires, put them in this nice loom, and then ran it down behind here, and then went underneath, tied it into the wire harness, and then brought it out in the compartment, plugged it in there, just made it look real nice. So got that done for them, and took it out for a nice gentle drive to break in the belt. And I've read a lot of conflicting things on that. Some people say it's not necessary. Some people say you have to do it or you'll trash your brand new belt. So I just went out, ran it up and down, real easy, just making it go different speeds, and then went from there, and it seems perfectly good. So one other thing I did is when you put the bed down, I grease these and grease these little catches, because you'd actually have to pull this lever up to get it to set right, and I didn't want to do that. Here you can also see the wire that I ran, and then ran it down and tied it into that harness. But yeah, now when you lay the bed down, it clips right in. Also, the tailgate was super sticky, lubricated that. Just basically sprayed some PP Blaster up inside of there and did it on that side. Also, they weren't too worried about that. So, but these little guys are what allow you to just close the tailgate. So I sprayed a little PB Blaster down and up on both sides there. That way when you go to put the tailgate up, it'll just close like so. Also, up inside the handle here, where that white piece is, you can see it moving there. Spray some PB Blaster on that, because once I did that, that's when it made the tailgate just really easy to open and close. So got her all strapped down to the trailer, and it's ready to go back to its owner. We did put a new battery in it. If you have a 2017 Polaris Ranger XP 900, it's a Group 26 battery. At least that's what this one has. I believe it probably has a larger battery because of the winch that's on the front. And we ran the winch through a test as well. Didn't get that on camera, but winch works good. And put this rack back on the front because I had that off to check the coolant under there. And then grease suspension over here. But we got this thing all ready to go. We also tested that light. That thing is brighter than bright. So we got this thing all wrapped up and ready to go. So hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for following along. We appreciate you guys. Please subscribe. It helps out our channel and helps us grow. We're growing slowly, and that's because of you guys. We appreciate that. Like the video if you would too. And if you've got any comments or suggestions, feel free to add those. And you know, any constructive criticism and suggestions to other viewers and stuff is or me is perfectly fine. Go ahead and add that. We'll catch you guys in the next one.